Hello everybody, this is Sarah with the York County Library. Welcome. Today we are going to be doing some kind of fun, quick, and messy paint projects. And so you see I have some supplies here. So we're going to be doing a couple of different projects. And these were all inspired by this book right here, The New Color Mixing Companion. This is available in print at the library, so you can put it on hold through the catalog, but it's also available through Hoopla, which is one of our digital services. You can find it on our website at www.yclibrary.org/virtual-library. And there you'll find Hoopla and a bunch of other services that we have for ebooks, audiobooks, movies, television, music, magazines, and more. So this is one of the books I found on there. And a couple of the things they do in here are using a palette knife to smear blobs of acrylic paint onto a canvas. So I'm going to be doing that with one of these small canvases that I used for the flower project we did a couple of weeks back. I'm also going to be doing this, she calls it the Freud, but it's basically an ink blot test. So I've taken some thick paper that will hold the paint that I have. I'm going to be using acrylic paint again. This right here is watercolor paper, but you may want to look for just thick cardstock, something where the paint is not going to go through or soak through the paper. So like notebook paper isn't going to cut it. So just look around, see what you have. But I'm using watercolor paper. You might have mixed media paper or sketchbook paper. So with this, we're basically going to be putting dots on one side and then creasing this and seeing what we get. And then the other one, I don't think is in here, but she does have this dots project right here where you're kind of doing some color studying and understanding the colors. But I kind of want to do this, but I want to use my fingertips. And I kind of tried this already, but I have these small little black thin canvases that I got from Michael's. I want to say they're in packs of 4, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I bought them, but they're a black surface, so when I put the paint on them, that color will really, really pop. So that's what I have planned for today. If you're interested in these projects and anything you saw in this today or this caught your eye, remember to visit Hoopla. I am going to change into what I call my painting pajamas because acrylic paint is something you don't want to get on your nice clothes. I would lay down something on a surface if you want to protect the surface of it. I don't really mind getting stuff on this desk, so I'm not going to do that. And without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I set out to make was the acrylic smear. Unfortunately, I did not heed the advice of the book, which says to start with 3 to 4 colors. I started with 7. I'm using acrylic paint and I have some water nearby along with a butter knife and spoon. I don't have a palette knife, which is what you usually use to smear the paint. So I decided I would try to use a butter knife or a spoon and see what gave me some good marks. So I laid down my globs of paint, putting colors in different areas, and then using the white to kind of go in between. I also didn't put anything underneath this at first because I thought, oh, it'll be fine. So I started moving the paint around and noticed that it started to get a little muddy. It was also really hard for me to control the butter knife, which was a large flat surface, so I would actually smear more than I would want to. And it all became very much blended and samey. So I decided, since I had an extra canvas, I would take this as a lesson and move on to another. So I laid down the paint. You can see I have these colors, 5 colors instead of 7, one of them being white just to lighten it up. And I decided this time that I wanted to use the spoon instead. And this way I could really control how much I was moving it by using the edge, and I could also push it with the curved side and pull paint with the inside of the spoon. And I also started by moving and making small marks to see how the colors that were nearby blended. And I just slowly moved around, making sure not to make it all one color, making sure that there was contrast between the darker colors and the lighter colors. And there I started to move the spoon around and get more interesting marks that weren't just swipes from left to right. I think it kind of looks like a mirage in a way on a landscape. So I liked where it was, and I'm going to stick with that. There's a close-up. I'm going to let this dry and it will become matte. And so now I have some watercolor paper, and I'm going to fold it down the middle. I flatten that edge. And so I have that crease, and I'm going to put paint on one side of the crease. I'm going to use very small dots of paint, so not the large globs that I was using with the acrylic smear. And again, I'm kind of using a limited palette. So I have 4 colors. There they are. So I'm going to fold this and press down, but then I'm also going to be using my fingers to do different motions to move the paint around. And then I get to open it up and see what happened. And there's the first one. So I'm creasing another one. I am going to use 3 colors with this. Again, just putting small little globs on one side of the crease. And what's fun about this project is in a previous video when I made the journal, I used a similar ink blot paper as my cover. So you could take this and make a card or use it as a journal cover or as a piece of art on its own. So with this I use big swirling motions, and that's what I got. And I decided I wanted to close it and apply some pressure in that top corner, so then it changed. And then I decided, well, let me see if I can do something in this bottom corner. And I decided that's where I wanted to stop. Alright, so this time I wanted to use the tube and do kind of a streak. Again, it's still kind of a tall pile as I streaked it. And then I put some yellow with the green streaks and some blue, and I kind of did little circles with the globs. And now I'm going to do kind of a circle motion on the right. I'm going to do a straight motion in the middle and then a wavy one on the left. So I close it, circular, straight, and wavy. And this is what I got. And you can kind of see where I initially put that glob down, or the streaks. And there's 3 of our ink blots. Ta-da! And now moving on to the last but not the least, though it is the smallest, we are going to be doing some work on this black canvas, or you could take a white canvas and paint it black and let it dry. I have a little palette here, and I am going to choose a couple of colors and just put a little bit in each of the wells in front of me. I'm going to use 3 colors. So I have a yellow, a light purple, and then a plum purple. And I also am going to use this extra piece of watercolor paper to do some test marks. So I'm going to take some on my pointer finger and then also on my pinky. So I got big circles and small circles. Rinse my fingers off. Then I'm going to take the dark plum and do some marks and just see how it fades as I go across without reapplying. Then I'm going to use my pinky, and I'm going to use the flat of my pinky and see what kind of shapes I get. I really encourage doing this kind of practice beforehand. You can get an idea for how you can control the paint with your finger, and you get more confident. You can see here when I was making these marks, I put my other hand underneath the hand that was making the marks, so it was a little bit more comfortable. So now that I have an idea of the marks that I can make, I'm going to start applying some paint on the canvas. So I'm just pressing straight down, not really moving my finger, and just putting some yellow dots. And I decided I wanted a little trail of dots. And they get smaller, so I'm applying less pressure as I make them, so they get smaller. So there's the yellow. And now I'm going to do some of the light purple. And I'm going to do 3 dots with the light purple. Again, kind of gradually getting smaller. And with the light purple, I decided I kind of wanted to play with going off the canvas. And with the dark purple, the plum purple, I just made singular dots at first. But I always like to go one page further. So I was doing the plum dots by themselves and decided I wanted to mix some paints. So I decided I would dip my finger in the light purple and then in the dark purple and use my practice sheet to see what it looks like as I made marks. And it went from darker to lighter. So the plum purple on the bottom hit the page first. And then I put half light purple, half yellow on my finger and made kind of mixed dots, but they still had a distinct difference in the color. So I decided to put some mixed plum and light purple dots on the page. I mean on the canvas. And I really liked that, so I decided to put some in as well with the yellow and light purple. Again, not mixing them, keeping them separate. And I think that kind of gave it a little bit more dimension instead of just the flat color. And there's the result. So I decided to go back in, put a couple more dots down here and there, just to fill in some of the spaces. And I worked on it until I got to a point where I felt like it was done. So I'm just going to let this dry. And that was our day of painting. I hope that you had fun today. We have 3 projects here that were done in this video alone. We have our small dot project. This one, the paint went on the thinnest, so it dried pretty fast. And also, if you can get this in a pack of 4, you could almost do a little series or a triptych or a diptych where you have 2 or 3 pieces that are in the same piece, so they have some kind of connection. So you could do that. They look like little tiles. You might be able to put like a thin coat of Mod Podge over this to protect it so it doesn't chip, and use it as just something, a small piece of art you take with you, put on your desk. So yeah, also just a really cute, quick gift to give to someone. And then we had our ink blot test. These dry pretty quick too, as long as you don't have a really thick coat on there. Otherwise, they may take a little longer. So these were thinner and they dried pretty quick. They're dry right now. It's been about an hour. This one, some of the yellow is on really thick and it kind of comes off of the page. So that needs to dry a little bit longer, but still most of it is dry. And then, of course, the first thing we did with the most paint was the kind of acrylic smear, where we use the blobs of paint on the canvas, and then we used, instead of a palette knife, but you can use a palette knife if you like to. Use the spoon. And I do want to remind you to use not a lot of colors. The first time I tried to do this, I used 6 colors and it turned out kind of muddy looking. So there's that, and I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it is still shiny. It's not entirely dry. There's a lot of globs of paint, not as big as they were when they first went on. But this will take a while to dry. I would really just leave it for a day just to make sure that it all gets dry and secure. So yeah. So I hope you had fun. I hope that this inspires you to get some paint, get some paper, some small canvases, and just experiment. Mix colors, have fun with mark making. I really found it kind of helpful to be quiet and just mix colors with this project, and using that sheet to practice my mark making so that I could see how changing the color or my pressure changed the mark that was on the page. It made me a little bit more confident when I went for the final piece. With this, you're just kind of putting stuff down and you don't know what it's going to look like exactly, so it's nice and relaxing. Maybe for some of you, I know some people like to be in control, but just being mindful of how everything's mixing as you move it. And then you also have your ink blot test where you're putting the colors down to start with and you're figuring out where you want to place those colors, but once you smush it, you're experimenting with the motion by which you press the paper together and seeing what that does. This project I think does better with having just a bunch of pieces of paper ready so that you can experiment and see how it goes. So yeah, I hope you had fun today. Please share with us on Facebook or Instagram if you found this really helpful, the comments down below if they're open, and I hope that this inspires you to get creative. So until next time, friends, as always, stay safe and stay creative, York County.